Hello, everyone, and welcome to Decoding the Market, presented by StreetEasy. You're welcome to submit questions at any time today using the question pane of the control panel. And if your computer speaker system isn't working, try selecting telephone in the audio panel to dial in via phone. Just a note, today's webinar is being recorded. And I would now like to introduce your host, Senior Manager of Industry Communications at StreetEasy, Lisa Holden.
Hello and welcome to Decoding the Market. This is our quarterly series where we showcase what's new in the research department here at StreetEasy, and it is tailored to you, our agent community. Today we're diving right in with Nancy Wu, StreetEasy Economist, who's behind all this research, and her co-presenter, Charles Botensten, longtime Manhattan agent, who is a power user of this data. Hello, speakers.
How are you?
Doing great. Charles, where are you calling in from?
I am calling in from the beautiful city of New York, right near Bryant Park, on the 8th floor overlooking Broadway and 41st Street.
Awesome. How's 41st Street doing?
It is way more packed at night, though Bryant Park was very crowded today. It was actually really nice to see.
Nice, good. And Nancy, where are you dialing in from?
I'm dialing in from Rancho Cucamonga, California, where I have been since March, and the average temperature here is 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's been beautiful.
Well, thank you for powering through to the both of you. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get into it. So for everyone on the line, Nancy is going to showcase her findings and all the research she's done here at StreetEasy in the past quarter. And Charles is here to talk about what he does with this information. So in other words, how he uses it to propel his business forward. And he's got a hefty email distribution list, a hefty social media following. So he's doing something right. And he can share how he utilizes this research and other reports and tools to grow his business. And I want to be clear, I mean, the best part of this presentation isn't about just Nancy and Charles, it's also about you. We've got plenty of time at the end to answer your questions, which again, you can submit at any time using that control panel on your screen. So don't be shy. These folks are here to discuss the issues you're facing and how data can help solve your problems. And one more quick note, at the end of today's event, as a thank you for your attendance and partnership, you'll have the opportunity to select a gift. And so to redeem it, you simply have to stay for the entirety of the webinar and fill out the survey that will pop up at the end. So stay the whole time, enjoy, fill out the survey, and then once it's filled out, you'll receive an email from StreetEasy to redeem your gift. So you can select an item that will be shipped to you directly, or you can select a donation to one of the nonprofit organizations listed, including some that are fighting for civil rights, COVID relief, or fair housing. Now, that's enough from me. Let's get to it. Nancy and Charles, over to you.
All right, it's great to meet everyone. I am the economist at StreetEasy, where we look at all the data on the market about the sales market, the rentals market, combining our personal data from StreetEasy, all our listings, with the city's data to look at what's been happening on the trends week to week, month to month. And I'm excited to share some of the trends with y'all that we've been seeing, and then some of our analyses on the outlook for the future. And I'm excited to discuss with Charles what he sees on the ground, because we got to have both perspectives here.
Yeah, there's a lot of not misinformation, but just a lot of what do I do with this information. So the conversations that we have daily are, you know, it'll help. It'll help.
Awesome. So we'll get the presentation started. Next slide, please.
Are you seeing that update, Nancy?
Huh?
Are you seeing the slide update? We're looking at prices by borough.
I'm not seeing the slides. I'm only seeing the Decoding the Market intro.
Lisa, are you seeing the slide?
You know what? I am seeing prices by borough, so maybe Maybe
You
Nancy's
might
got
have
a
a local copy of the presentation open on top, would be my best guess.
Okay. Let's see the presentation. Okay. Well, so which slide is showing for you guys?
It's prices by borough based on median closing price in Q2 2020.
Okay, so we'll start with the sales market overview. I'm really excited to show you guys the data that we've been seeing on the sales market. And this is just some trends that we've been seeing. This is the median closing prices as of the second quarter of the year, which is during the height of the pandemic. And we're seeing that prices were lower in Manhattan and Queens, and rose in Bronx, Staten Island, and Brooklyn. So there's a lot of things going on here, and every neighborhood is having a different trend, and we'll dive into how prices have been changing over time, year over year. Next slide.
Okay.
Now we're on Manhattan continues to lead the sales market slowdown.
So Manhattan, prices have been slowing down for the third year in a row now. This is nothing new, and we're seeing that these trends are continuing as the pandemic has been going on. So we're seeing that prices in Manhattan have still been falling by about 4% year over year as of July. That's been a trend that's been happening since late 2018. So we're seeing Brooklyn prices falling by about 1 to 2%, and then Queens prices stabilizing. So the sales market hasn't had the full impact of the pandemic reflected on it yet, because prices are still going at the same levels that we're seeing. There's been a bit of a pause in the market as sellers have taken off inventory, and now inventory is coming back onto the market again as phase 2 of reopening starts and open houses are allowed. Next slide, please. So the new weekly sales inventory has been piling up. A lot of sellers are hitting the pause button when the pandemic started and they couldn't show homes in person. So now we've seen that inventory has been coming back onto the market, especially in July after phase 2 of reopening. Next slide. So this is nowhere near where inventory levels have been because the pandemic, there's a lot of homes that still haven't come onto the market yet. And we're seeing that the homes that haven't been sold yet are still, a lot of them are still lingering. We're seeing a bit of inventory come back onto the market, but overall, there's still more to come. A lot of homes went into contract after phase 2 of reopening started, and that brought about more home purchases, but it's still pending sales or sales going to contract is still lower year over year. So we're still seeing a bit of a slowdown and not as much activity as we typically see this season. And among the people who have been buying, there has been a lot of negotiating going on. So the sellers who are selling now really want to get rid of their houses. The buyers who are buying now are looking at the mortgage rates, are looking at good deals. And even though sellers are advertising a 5% price cut on homes in Manhattan, sellers are actually negotiating. The average closing price was 10% off of the initial asking price in Manhattan. So there's a lot of off-market negotiations going on. Which brings me to the next slide about the takeaways for buyers and sellers. This is a place I want to discuss with you, Charles and Lisa, about what's been going on the market, because is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? There's a lot of things going on here. I think that sellers need to price properly if they want to get rid of their properties, and buyers are in a good place to negotiate. What do you guys think?
Yeah, the number one question, we'll start with buyers first, is that going into the spring, I was fully expecting to have a good spring because 2018, 2019, I specifically remember in 2018, it was Easter weekend, and then every weekend after that, those open houses were terrible. And I was just thinking, okay, I guess we're hitting the height of inventory, and all of that inventory started coming off the market in the late last year. So I was like, okay, this is good. Buyers are getting excited. COVID hits. So explaining to a buyer that the pricing is already decreased from 2016, 2017 is tough because they want a discount on the listing price along with the discount that it's already listed at. So explaining it to a buyer through graphs, and obviously this along with telling an owner, listen, I can't get you the price and that you want. So I don't know. I'm a little hesitant to say that there's going to be a splash of inventory. Just give you one example. I met with someone last week. She has a 3-bedroom, and she said, I met with an agent right before this. He told me I can get 2.5. I said, this is the best comparable. It's not an exactable, but it's a great comparable. We can't get you 2.5 because this comparable is at 2.2 and it's still on the market. So there's a lot of owners that, if frank speak is being told to them, that they will wait until the spring after the election. Hopefully COVID's a little bit better. Obviously there's a lot of uncertainty. We'll see if owners choose to sell. Who's ever on the market needs to sell. That's what I tell the buyers. So we're putting in some low offers. To be honest, it's tough even making that call to the listing agent.
It makes a lot of sense what you're saying, Charles. And I want to point out to everyone who's on the call, this is supposed to be an engaged discussion. So like I said, you can submit questions, but you're also welcome to tweet or share on Instagram or any other social media, anything that your speakers say here that's of interest to you. So they've got their social handles there beneath their image, their face. You can also tag StreetEasy, that's under my name. And feel free to share a soundbite or a quote that you find interesting, and there's a chance StreetEasy might reshare it too. So feel free to take notes and share those notes with your audience as needed.
All right. I want to share some of the findings that we've been seeing on the condos and new developments in New York City. So in this next slide, we're seeing that there's been record levels of unsold inventory piling up onto the market even before the pandemic has started. And this is why I think prices will fall even more, because in 2019, we saw that 1 in 4 new dev condos have remained unsold. They were built in 2013 and they still haven't been sold yet. That's a lot of inventory piling up onto the market. Over 5,000 units have yet to be completed of proposed new construction. So the record high inventory on the sales market that's been piling up, it's going to lead to a lot of price discounts in the future, because we're not seeing investors coming in. We're not getting foreign investors buying these homes during the pandemic because they're not coming to the city. And that's going to put downward pressure on the prices on condos, on the luxury tier, and new development buildings, especially in Manhattan. So in the next slide, we're seeing simultaneous listings. That means that a apartment is listed for sale and for rent at the same time. That happens when a seller is trying to get rid of the property in any way. But we're seeing a lot of homes listed simultaneously on the market now, twice as many in 2020 compared to 2019. And these are homes at very high prices that people are trying to rent out or sell, and it's a sign that these homes aren't being purchased. So in the next slide, let's see which types of buildings are these that are getting less demand. What do these buildings have in common? They are large, they are luxury developments, they have all the amenities that you can't use right now because of COVID. So there's downward pressure on prices in these, and these are all located in Midtown West, in FiDi, and it's going to be an interesting time for the market here. I'm curious what you guys have been seeing regarding these buildings and just new developments and condos in general.
Yeah, I saw this in 2009, the Atelier, the Sheffield, these huge condominiums that they're all roughly the same layout. The views are roughly the same. They, the E line from 10 to 42, floor 42 are roughly the same. So what we saw in FiDi was obviously the transformation from office buildings going to what was supposed to be condos. They actually went to rentals. And I was down there on Wall Street at a smaller firm at the time, and they were condo finishes, but a rental. And I just remember seeing the trend of that happening, and then seeing these huge buildings that I just remember at that time to persuade buyers to just think into the future. I would never persuade them not to buy, but I would always just say, in these 400, 500 unit buildings, we're going to see it down at the Seaport. There's a huge one that's going up, I think 900 units. There's going to be a lot of competition at another time, even to rent out. These places still have 30, 40 units for rent. So that's an even tougher position for an owner to be in.
That's super interesting. Are you seeing how are you seeing demand during COVID for these condos versus co-ops?
Yeah, so going actually back to the new development is I have strictly new development buyers that have actually pulled back. And the reason they pulled back is rentals, which I know we'll get to, but because the landlords are pretty seasoned on how large the vacancy is, they're offering these buyers crazy incentives to keep them in the apartment. So the buyers are coming to me, they're like, I know this new development is, there's closing costs or something else being offered. My landlord's telling me he's giving me 2 or 3 free months. There's no pressure for them to leave their rental because their lease is coming due. So landlords are obviously getting the door knocked by banks that are asking for their funds. So it'll be interesting if they go to rentals, what incentives they'll offer, because there'll be a lot of incentives to offer.
Yeah, and Charles, we're getting another question here. You mentioned off-market negotiating sales. What exactly do you mean by that?
So we like off-market because it kind of brings a seller in this market where they don't have people going throughout their home. They are probably working from home, so they would have to leave the apartment. It's not like they're already at their office space when I'm showing it at midday. So they have to pack up everything. They always have to keep it clean. So what we're seeing is kind of a pushback that says, if I can't get my pricing, I kind of want to wait a little bit. So what we do is we go in there and we just take the trusty old phone out. The new one's great because it gets the wide angle, and just say, hey, listen, we'll keep this as an off-market opportunity. We'll take a video. I have my colleague film it and I just explain it. And then when we run across a buyer, we send the video that's not listed on YouTube to the buyer. And then they get a great, not only a preview, but they can make the decision because it's a full property tour. It's 6-7 minutes. So they know exactly everything, the view, the closets. It's not like 2 minutes of highlights. It's everything. So owners have actually preferred that. I had a conversation with someone, and we're going to be doing that with them. So that's an off market if we find a buyer.
Well, we've seen a ton of agents move into this space where they're, sort of seeing consumers demanding virtual tours before they elect to go see a place, either out of busy schedule or simply safety reasons. Folks are really looking at those kind of ways that they can take a look at what's out there without actually having to physically be there. And I mean, this has been going on for a long time, right? You look at, international buyers and things like that. There have been these solutions, but now they're becoming this sort of expected element to your business and the functionality of it. So that's really interesting to hear.
Well, especially with the international buyers, you're just seeing that has almost completely dried up because obviously there's a quarantine, 14 days, and I'm in the capital of Times Square. So I see that. I did actually ironically story about this on Instagram yesterday, where it's good to see tourists. They're tourists, they're walking slow, they're looking around. So that's good to see. That's necessary because that's helping out restaurants, service industry, hotels, which, all of that is necessary. Like the tourism industry is massive. So if we're not even seeing tourists, you're not going to see buyers, international buyers. And those are the new development. Those are the nicer condos that are about 5-6 years old.
That's so true. Those are the buyers that we're missing from the segment right now. And it's also part of the reason why prices are going up so high. Like investors who will pay in cash, who will negotiate prices to just buy the building. And there's just so many new construction units now in the market. And hopefully there'll be some downward pressure on prices or more people interested in buying them as the economy opens up again. All right, we can move on to rentals and talk about what's going on in the rentals market. So the rentals market has been, while the sales market has had a prolonged pattern of the slowdown that has still been reflecting what's been going on in the past, the rentals market is reflecting the current economic downturn in the city in real time. So let's look at where rents were going. The year-over-year changes in rents are insane. So rents dropped prior to the pandemic. Rents were at record highs. And then rents have since dropped by 3% year over year as of July in Manhattan. They've also dropped in Brooklyn and Queens. And the last time rents dropped this much was during the Great Recession, where rents fell by over 10% over the course of the year after the stock market crash. And I wouldn't be surprised to see rents fall by even more than that, because our unemployment rate is at 20% as of July in New York City. That's twice the rate at what unemployment was during the Great Recession, which is 10%. And that's going to impact the demand we're seeing. And we can talk more about that in the next few slides. There's a lot of context there.
Yeah, I'll just throw it out there. The rental market is in the gutter. I don't see any foreseeable future that's coming back this year. Like, it's brutal. It is. One conversation I had with this guy, we manage about 10 of his properties. We manage total probably 25 properties on behalf of investors. The conversation I had, I said, I have literally had, and obviously costs to throw up a rental has been just enormous, because you have longer days on the market, you're showing it more often, so it's taking time away from what would normally be a 1 to 2 day process, 1 week max at all of our places. So landlords for 9 years, pretty much 2011 to about even up to maybe last year, end of last year, has been fine. But this year, it was literally clawing for him to say yes. And we're going short term because that's the only option that we have. And it's actually 10% below the tenant that just moved out. So I did a search, 151 bedrooms in this price range. I'm like, this is crazy. No, I'm getting more people that are looking to sublet their place because they have no need to be in their apartment or in New York City, and they want a larger space. So yeah, this year is going to be a lot of hurt for landlords, a lot of hurt. And I'll just throw this out. In 2009, downtown in the financial district, they were offering upwards of 3 free months and paying the broker. I highly speculate that those incentives will come back. 15-month lease, 3 free months. We'll pay the broker. Even one building, 200 Water Street downtown, was offering 2-month commission to the brokers just to rent out their place. So those incentives will come back in a hurry.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of discounts in the market already, like huge concessions. I had a friend who is living in Boston, and she just she negotiated this deal on this studio in Wall Street that usually was on StreetEasy, the previous price was like 36, and she got it for 24 a month. She got 2 months free, no broker fees, and she's just coming to New York to like work from home. I think that's like insane. I'm just seeing so many good deals right now, and there's going to be more to come, which is great for renters and going to be a tough time for landlords. We're seeing that rentals are offering record high levels of discounts and concessions, especially in Manhattan, and this is the trend that we expect will continue. We're seeing that this is why it'll continue, because we're seeing rental inventory pile up onto the market. Leases expire in the summer months, more are expiring in August. Just looking at July, inventory has been piling up onto the market, and it's been way higher than last summer. So we're seeing that weekly rental inventory in July has been 65% higher than it was last year in the same month. So these rentals are building up throughout the summer, and the city is in a tough position, especially come September, when the new grads and students and new workers don't come to the city to rent these apartments. So as these apartments are building up, we're seeing a lot more supply and a lot less demand. This is why demand has been falling. There's a lot of reasons, but one is that a lot of New Yorkers are leaving the city. Unemployment rates are sky high. People can't pay rent if they don't have a job, or people are leaving because they want to stay somewhere else. And we're seeing that this is expediting the natural attrition of the city, where a lot of New Yorkers who are planning to move in a couple of years to the suburbs for their family or for school, they are moving now rather than waiting a year or two. And finally, we're not seeing the lost demand being replaced by new people moving into the city, because we're not having new people come into the city to work here or go to school. They're all working from home. There's a lot of reasons happening on the economy side. And I'm curious what you've been seeing in terms of demand in the city. Like, are there fewer, like, who's renting or buying right now? What? Yeah, I'm just curious. 'Cause we're
So
seeing,
ironically enough, the last two that we rented on behalf of owners that were 10%, actually more than 10%, and we offered them a free month. So it's 10% lower rent. They were both students. So one was going to Columbia Law, the other one was going to NYU Dental. And I think they're going to be remote, but I thank God for them, because I'm in an office space that's 16 stories. There's probably, no joke, 10 people in the entire building right now. I'm looking out, I'm in Midtown, all the high rises on 6th Avenue, all of them that are office space, they're all empty. No one needs to go to an office. So they're saying, if I don't need to go to an office and I'm sick and tired of my studio 1-bedroom, why don't I just do this from Jersey Shore? Hudson Valley is skyrocketing. The New Jersey. So this kind of just crunched the people that wanted more space. They're now demanding that space, or at least a backyard, or, like you said, the employment, the service industry, Broadway, they're crushed. And any of that, they're not renewing their leases.
that's so
All right.
true.
Charles, you mentioned the Jersey Shore and the Hudson Valley. We're getting a question here. Are there any neighborhoods that you are seeing the rental market prices remaining high and tight, and where you are seeing prices the lowest and the loosest?
Yeah, the highest and tight would probably be, I would say, the Upper West Side. We got the most traction. Downtown, lowest and loosest. That was where we had 150 1-bedrooms in like a $500 radius. So I wouldn't want to be a landlord down there.
I'm curious. I have opinions on this, and this has come up so many times with reporters. Do you think people are leaving the city? Do you think people are leaving the city for the suburbs? Is that a permanent trend that you're seeing, like for Hudson Valley, or does it seem like they're just going there temporarily and want to come back to the city once things are open again?
I would say it's 50-50, because the good friends and people that, because I don't really do rentals. I just, if a landlord, or I'm sorry, an investor has a place, we'll help them rent it out. But but to counteract that, I get a ton of my friends that are just asking me questions. Can I negotiate? Should I re-sign my lease? And they're telling me the exact same story is, I need to exercise, I want to be outdoors, and I can't really do that in New York City. So they're just not coming back. So they're staying in out west. I know people on this call are out west. I wish I was there. Yeah, exactly. So, the trend that I'm seeing is people that had office jobs that are still employed are not coming back. And a lot of them, I just got someone yesterday, I just want to break my lease. I don't even want to be here. So it's like an unhappiness thing. So there's going to be a trend of a lot of the people that are employed at an office job that they're just not required to be at the office. So they're just not even coming back. I don't know if they'll ever come back. I don't know. They might like Colorado and California too much.
That's so true. That brings us to some other points that I think will, like, the future of the rentals market in New York City. What is getting less demand now, and why is that happening? As you mentioned, Manhattan is pretty empty. People don't need that short commute time anymore. Everything in Manhattan is small for the price per square foot of renting or buying. And without needing to commute to the offices, people are looking in the outer boroughs. So there's been less demand for Manhattan, is what we're seeing. We're seeing higher price cuts and more rent and price drops over there. There's also been less demand in our data for amenity buildings. So those luxury buildings with the gyms and the rooftop decks that have been closed or people can't use. People don't want to pay for them, and those buildings are offering a lot of concessions. Also, the luxury tier is in a similar story that we've been talking about on both rentals and sales. There's been a lot of concessions and discounts there. So the real
Yeah,
estate market, uh-huh.
sorry, I'll just throw out there that I remember an agent when phase two started and we were allowed to actually legally work. So an agent posted on social media that this is good for all the places that have amenities. And I'm thinking they can't even use these amenities, so it's like I have this gym I can't use, this lounge I can't use, this children's playroom I can't use, yet I'm paying for it. So, the one place that we just rented, I said, well, there is that. I can't show it to you and you can't use it, but it's in the building. The roof was open, so I showed them that, beautiful views, they could work from home. But as you said, the rental market bakes that into it as opposed to a non-amenity building. So the people are opting for doorman, and if that, they just want to go for price right now.
That's so true. Are there like a lot of concessions happening in amenity buildings where landlords will basically give you a concession in return for not being able to use amenities or some other incentive to get people to live there? Because they're still nice buildings, but no one wants to pay for that gym. But you do, like a lot of people do want a nice like new space to stay in while they're working from home.
Yeah, I really feel the 18-month lease will come back. 15 months you pay rent, 3 months are free, 18 months, they need to put people in apartments and they'll offer anything, and there's way too much competition right now. That was the exact conversation. And the landlord is used to me getting him record prices, and I'm like, all we have right now is a short term that's a 12% below what we just rented it to someone who just left, and you're paying me and you're giving them a free month. It's going to be survival of the fittest. And a lot, I'll also just throw it out there for tenants. My sister is moving, ironically enough, back to New York City. I was like, you need to rent this year, lock in a 2-year lease, because at one time that $3,000 apartment is now going to be $3,500. When? Maybe in 10 months, a year, or whatever. But I'm like, sign a 2-year lease at $3,000, and in the long term, you'll save, a lot of money. But,
it sounds like the advice for the renters agents out there is you've got an opportunity to tell clients there are deals to be had, and now is the time to jump and secure something. And, we're getting a question here from someone who's saying, would you agree that if a landlord or investor isn't willing to offer an incentive, their spot is going to sit on the market?
Oh, yeah. The other call that I had with someone that we just put in the lease application today, she said, she's European, and she said, do they pay the HOA fees? I'm like, no, they don't pay the HOA fees. They just pay the rent. So in Europe, apparently they pay the rent and the HOA fees, common charges, maintenance, whatever you want to call it. But the problem was that she's looking at a mortgage and a maintenance, or mortgage, common charges, taxes of like $3,700, and she's losing $700, $800 out of pocket, because what's the alternative? We put it on at a huge loss, or do you just eat $700 for a year? So the actual math on that is a priority. Like, this is what we can sell it for. Here's the loss. And then here's the monthly loss. They're both cash, but do you want to lose $100,000 or $700 a month for a year and a half? So they're obviously opting for the $700, it's a very uncomfortable conversation. Nobody wants to have it, but it's necessary to help out the owner.
It's a really insane time right now for both the rentals and the sales market. And I want to talk about what we think the future of New York City is going to look like. I have some predictions here. I think that prices on the market are still reflecting overly optimistic expectations, especially on the sales side. Sellers are thinking of listing later where they can get a higher price. But with this buildup of inventory and people leaving the city, I really think that demand will fall and prices will fall and rents will fall. We're seeing higher vacancy rates and high inventory. Those are all factors that are contributing to this. The unemployment rate of 20% is going to lead to a lot of people leaving the city and not being able to pay rent. When people can't pay rent, then landlords can't pay the mortgages and that's going to threaten credit markets and the financial markets. It's all a big domino effect. And that hasn't happened in the city yet, but it could in the future, and we have to wait and see what's happening in the data over there. And finally, we're seeing like a lot of changes in priorities for people. So preferences among renters and buyers is no longer to live in the middle of the city where they can commute to their offices, but to have a big space, whether that's in the outer boroughs or in the Hudson Valley. But they want that space, they want that office where they can work, and they don't have to worry about how long it takes to commute to their offices. And finally, we're seeing that, we've talked about this a lot, but demand will fall for Manhattan properties, luxury condos, amenity buildings. And these are trends that I don't know how long they'll last, but it's definitely been ongoing for a while, and I expect to see more in the future. I'm really excited to hear what you guys think about the future of New York City.
The future of New York City. So it's, the conversations that we're having are so similar to 2009. It's hesitancy. Everyone's telling them not to do something, buy or sell or rent. There's different opinions. Nobody has, the train is not all moving the same direction. So the tracks are all over the place. And then we're kind of here to say, that's incorrect. This is correct. Let's focus on the facts. And, I'll just go to something that just came top of mind, is that Mark Zuckerberg was being interviewed by CNBC, and he said, we're looking to do all virtual by 2030 because we can tap talent in the middle of the country that doesn't want to go to San Francisco, Austin, New York City. So that's an interesting trend that I'm actually seeing among renters who would normally become buyers. There are really three types of the market, like the co-op condo market, that is the everyday person that, the one bedrooms are roughly between 6 to a million, 800,000. Then you have the mid-tier, mid-luxury, and then you have the higher end. The higher end, it's gonna, I can't see that coming back for many, many, many years because there's so much inventory on the market. The mid-tier is interesting because we're seeing prices go down, but there's just not enough on the market. And then kind of the lower tier going down, there's actually one subset that I'm getting into. I've had 4 bidding wars on one bedrooms in the Clinton Hill kind of area, and they've all went over the asking price. So it doesn't make any sense, but anytime an $800,000 one bedroom comes on the market in that area, they go. It's crazy. So there's not enough inventory there. If it's priced well, it's going to go. But if I was an owner, I would just wait it out. It's going to rebound. It always does. It's just the financial sector moved into service sector after the Great Recession, and we'll see where we go from here. I think we'll go more into tech. You're seeing that obviously, Moynihan Station, Facebook, Amazon. So we'll see. I think we'll move into tech for jobs, which is high paying. And I'll also just throw this out. I know I've been ranting, but the conversation about buyers is that they're actually going to the places that they've always wanted to go during the summer, which would be a lake house or a beach house or something like that. So this kind of just condensed that, and now they're enjoying it, and they can work from home. So those are the people that need to return once the office spaces start opening up. That's the return we'll start seeing to the rental and to the sales market when those offices that are all vacant right now start opening up and people can return to work.
Nancy, I think you
mentioned that sellers should wait because things will recover. I do believe New York City will recover and be stronger than ever. After the Great Recession, we saw that employment and population just went to record highs, and prices rose like crazy after falling 10%, 15% a year or two after the financial crisis. I'm curious from opinions, like, how long do you think this will last? It's a really big question, but like, how long should sellers wait? Like, are a lot of sellers waiting to list their properties later? And like, is that a 6-month thing? It's 5-year thing? I don't think it's gonna be 5 years, but like, just in general.
Yeah. I might not be having this conversation if it's a 5-year thing. I'll be, doing, I don't know, waiting tables. But listen, the election year does play into it. in 2012, 2016, and 2008, there's just a lot of hesitancy around election years, even if this was a decent time. So 2012, it was a pretty good time. 2016 was definitely a good time, but it was still very slow. All the homes that we took off in the fall of 2015 for the election, we put on in 2016, and we sold them at the price that we wanted because there was hesitancy. Right now, we have so much going on. So I would say the pricing is not going to be better, but I think that sellers are recognizing they can't get the price they want, so they're just going to hold off. So there's not going to be as much inventory, which is going to help it out. Because I'm having those conversations. I just had one today. The guy said, I just can't get the price, so I'm not going to put it on the market. So I said, all right, we'll do the off-market transaction, or we'll try and find it. So I would say the rental market is at least 18 months out, probably 12 months minimum. The sales market is also probably 12 to 15 months. Probably next fall, we'll see, that upward. You don't know until it's behind you, but the spring is going to be a little bit better, but it's not going to be like, oh my God. It'll probably be next fall. We'll start seeing, okay, we're breathing. COVID's done, elections behind us, things like that.
That's super interesting. I think we're on the same page about that. I'm like super excited to do research throughout this time to see how the trends are changing. I want to show you guys how to follow our trends in real time. There's a lot of data that StreetEasy makes available. We're always tracking what's happening month to month. And if you go to the data dashboard, this is the address. You can customize the data that you want to download, all the things that we talked about for the various boroughs. And let's see, let me show you the demo. So if you can see my screen here, this is the data dashboard. The link was on the slide, but it's really cool because you can cover over all of these neighborhoods and see their statistics. You can look at sales and rentals. You can choose any of the metrics we talked about earlier, plus more. You can customize by bedroom size, co-ops and condos. For rentals, you can look at different things as well. And like we show all the trends in real time, or going to the last market report that we had, which was July. And here you can customize the neighborhoods you want to compare, the metrics you want to compare, and you can also download our data and create your own analyses. So we have a lot of research and data made available because it's really important to keep up with the latest trends to see what's happening. And look at this rental inventory just shooting up dramatically. That's exactly what we've been talking about. Yeah, it's insane. So
that's crazy.
Yeah. That's going to be, we're going to see a lot of interesting things on the rentals market. If you're into data, if you're into graphs, like this is so fun to play with. So keep updated with that. And
I actually use that, and I do have to thank StreetEasy for making it visual. So I'm a numbers guy, but I seen the peaks and the valleys is great to show consumers, because the number one metric I was paying real close attention to, because it was so vital to not a lot of buyers, looking for homes, was how many new homes were coming on the market. And we were just seeing skyrocketing double digits in Queens for multiple months. And you could kind of see that when you're taking the Long Island Railroad, you just see how much Queens has transformed, because you had these massive high rises that all came on roughly at the same time. So this is a great tool, especially 50,000 above that. That's crazy, and that's 2017 levels.
Wow.
Wild. Nancy, I think I love that you're pointing out how fun it is to play around with this data. And Charles, love that you're a numbers guy. I myself am more of a words person. So when I look at numbers, I'm kind of like, oh man, how do I put this in a sentence? And so having that data visualization there can be really helpful for whatever kind of learner you as an agent are, but importantly, what kind of learner your clients are. So sometimes you can talk numbers at someone all day and they just don't retain it, but actually looking at them or articulating what they mean can be super helpful. So congrats to everyone on the line for looking at this in various ways so that you're informed about how to articulate this to your clients. Quick shout out to our blog here. Nancy, not to steal your thunder.
Yeah, if you are a learner, if you like data, play with our data. If you learn from words, we have a ton of research. I've published a ton of my thoughts on what's going on in the rentals market and the sales market compared to the last recession, where we're going with the rentals market. There's always new articles up. And we have our market reports that put into words the trends that you're seeing on the data page and highlight the key points there. So it's super interesting. Be sure to check out our blog to have access to those research reports and share with people. And you can also contact me on my Twitter, LinkedIn. Happy to answer any questions and stay in touch.
Awesome. So now I think we are kicking it over to our next and final slide, which is all about you. So you, audience on the line, we are primed and ready to hear your questions. We've got a few great ones coming in. So I will start with this one. From a landlord's agent perspective, how do you go about convincing and explaining to an owner to lower their asking rents and provide concessions, especially to the old school landlord?
I literally have that. I had that today. I storied about it, because just getting a deal done, because the first thing that I explained to him was that I can't even do my job because not enough people are actually contacting me. So it's not like it's a lack of salesmanship. I'm great at sales, so it's not like it's me. Yeah, maybe obviously take full responsibility, but I'm telling them every single week, every single Tuesday, I reach out and I say, here it is in the market. We have 150. That's a real number, 150 one bedrooms we're competing with in this $500 price range. I'm doing absolutely nothing different than what I did renting out your other units. The market is just not good. It's an empathetic conversation, because I lead with his objections, which is, I'm not doing a good enough job. It's not being marketed anywhere. I'm not showing it enough. So you're kind of handling the objections, and then you also bring up solutions. So he was never open ever at any time to a short-term rent or reducing the rent. So it was like, let's put this person in here and we'll revisit this in January. I have no idea what it's going to be like in January. I hope it's not worse than what it is now, but I'm an optimistic guy. So it's really saying, put someone in here to handle your costs. It's different with an individual owner, which was our other person on the Upper West Side, because this is our only unit. She's paying $3,700 in building costs plus her mortgage, and we just rented it at $3,000. Okay, she doesn't want to write that check. Okay, $700 per month. It's also the empathetic. That was on for 2 months. It was way too many times it was shown. So it's really a weekly update with the reality. And I rip off the Band-Aid every single time. I just say, this is the reality, and we need to do this to rent out your unit. And then the last thing I'll say, because again, I could go on a rant, is that you have to say the alternative is, if we pass on this person, whether it's a crazy incentive or a low price, it could be another month, which means that's $3,000 we're losing. You have to pay $3,700, so you have to put it into the future as well.
I love it. I want to reiterate the point you're making about offering up the alternative, the realistic alternative here, right? Like, your landlords are dealing with a situation that we're all dealing with. There's a lot of uncertainty. They're unclear about what's next. And so you, as the informed agent who's staying abreast of everything happening in the market, for you to be able to say, look, this isn't an ideal situation, and I get that. My recommendation is for you to do X, Y, Z. The alternative to that is LMNOP. And that's exactly why informing yourself with data helps really substantiate that conversation. We've got a couple questions here around that data dashboard. Nancy, it looks like someone noticed there was a rental inventory that was incredibly high in 2017. Do you know what that was about? Why it was so high?
Yeah, 2017 was an interesting time. The economy was doing really well. So many people were moving to the city as tech jobs opened. Companies were moving to New York City. People were coming here. There was a lot of new inventory, especially in Manhattan, high-end rentals. But you know what? They were being rented. That was inventory coming in response to demand, and prices actually were pretty stable during that time. we saw a lot of discounts. In September, inventory was really high because there's seasonality in the market and more rentals come onto the market in the spring and the fall. So that's when we're seeing the peaks in 2017, but they did go down because people rented them. So that was a time when the economy was matching with supply and demand. We're in a different time now where there's way more supply on the market. It's not because people are coming to the city, it's because people are leaving the city. So that's going to be a really interesting difference that we're watching for the years to come.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Now, this is a question that I think both of you might have a perspective on, but I'll start with you, Charles. Are landlords asking for more or less security deposit, or are you seeing any fluctuation there?
Well, you can't legally. So they are open to landlords that were not really open to the organizations that would secure a guarantor position are now open to that. And those were individual owners that wanted a person instead of a company, because what they do is they actually just give over a bond. And it's like the owner's like, I'm going to sue a company if they don't pay rent, because we just had that. We actually had somebody that was during COVID was not moving out. They weren't paying rent for 3 months. I'm getting the call every single day, and they said the guarantor also lost their job. So they were then open to a larger company, and I'm talking about the guarantors or something rent. I forgot the other ones, but the companies that guarantor on behalf, because you can't take more than 1 month security or extra months up front. So that opened the door for these big companies. So that kind of helps us out. And to those people that are international students, they don't have a green card or a visa, they're on a student visa, or people that may not have good credit. So it helps out in the long run, pretty much any tenant.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Very much so, thank you. Nancy, this is one for you. How long do you think this downward market will last? And feel free to get out your crystal ball on this one.
Yeah, we talked a bit about this. I agree with Charles that I think it's 18 months, 15 months, it'll be a while, especially for the rentals market. We're already seeing the rentals market start this inventory. It's going to depend on when people come back to the city, when offices open again and people want to rent these properties. But for now, they're piling up onto the market, and I don't see that changing throughout the end of the year. On the sales market, I do expect that it might last even longer because we're not even seeing the changes happen yet. There's still so much inventory that sellers are holding onto and waiting to sell. There's always, for the past 3 years, there's been more inventory on the market than there's been demand. So that slowdown is just perpetuating because of this crisis. And I have no idea how long it's going to last, but I think it's going to be quite a long time because we're not even seeing the prices reflect in the market yet, and it's going to take a while. Also, the economy has not crashed yet, but in general, there's a lot of talk about an oncoming recession. We know from the last recession that prices and rents fall much slower than the economy. So there's a lot of things to watch out for nationally as well. If there's a dip in the economy, in the stock market or any of these large factors that we see, the real estate market will follow, but only in over several months or several years. So it's a slow process, but that's what we have data for, to look at the changes month to month.
Yeah, what I'll add, I 100% agree, is what I'll add to that is that a lot of these buyers and sellers are so tuned in right now because they have social media. Their neighbors are now on Building Link. So they're saying, hey, listen, does anyone want to buy my apartment? Does anyone want to, look at my studio, downgrade, upgrade, pied-à-terres? They also obviously have regular news. So they're so tuned in that unfortunately, that the news is a little bit behind on the actual market sometimes, because they're getting a month or 2 months old data and they're saying it's like right now. So I would say it probably will be absorbed in the next 15 months, and then it'll take about 18 months where you start to see maybe like a straight line or like that. That's all we're looking for, that little bit of optimism.
Well said. We're looking for that optimism anywhere that we can find it. And if we can't find optimism, at least we can inform ourselves with data. I'm going to close out on one final question here from someone who says, can I pay to get advanced reports from the data dashboard? And the resounding answer to your question is no. These reports are free, and anything that you could possibly pull from them are yours to have to inform your clients and inform your business and propel your business forward. So encourage you all to play around with that data dashboard. I want to thank our speakers for dropping so much knowledge on us in the past hour. We will have a recording of this webinar up for you shortly. And to our audience, thank you for joining, and don't forget to stick around after this webinar. See that survey pop up, take the survey, and then we will send you a gift of appreciation for your time. So with that, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you next time.